Welcome to Personality Speaking, where the tea is always hot. My show is dedicated to helping you build healthier, stronger relationships through the understanding of the personalities. This show airs live every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want more about this, you want to know more about this content, then you need to subscribe and check the notification bell so you will get the latest and the greatest of this show. But not only that, it will give you the notification that we're going live because we want you to join in the conversation. In case you don't know me, my name is Karen Ward. I'm an advanced certified personality trainer. I'm a speaker. I'm the author of the book, Couple for Life, Overcoming Personality Differences in Marriage. And I'm a personality coach. Woo, what does that mean? I help you with all your personality differences, and so you can build stronger relationships. Now, this show also focuses on the 4 personality styles that was developed by the late world-renowned Florence Littauer. She talked about 4 personality styles, and they are 2 extroverted personality styles, which means you get your energy from other people. And those personality styles are the powerful choleric. And the powerful choleric is a mover and a shaker. They get more things done in the morning than most of us get done all week, but they could be controlling and domineering and curt and abrasive in their communication. Then you have the popular sanguine. The popular sanguine is a fun-loving personality style that really is engaging and they draw people to them, but they could be forgetful and flighty and just quick to anger. So those are your extroverted personality styles. Your introverted personality styles are the perfect melancholy and the peaceful phlegmatic. And those personality styles, the introverts get their energy from within. So the perfect melancholy strives for perfection. They tend to have high expectations of themselves and others, but they're also very compassionate and highly intelligent, but they're critical and judgmental. Oof. Then you have 4th and final personality style and the second introverted personality style, and that's the peaceful phlegmatic. The peaceful phlegmatic is cool, calm, collected. They're a chill personality. They're loyal and dependable, but they're also a disinterested and uninvolved, and they can also be very sarcastic in how they communicate. So that's a brief overview of the personalities. To get more information, you can go to my website, beyond2llc.com. And you can also purchase an assessment to identify your own personality style. Now, let's get to personality speaking. Tonight, we have some guests with me. They're friends of mine, and they're amazing pastors. Excuse me, I apologize. They are pastors Conrad and Shannan Eaddy. I'm so thankful to have them. Let me tell you a little bit about them. We're going to be talking about personalities as it relates to our communication. Whew. It's going to be hot tonight. Okay, so Conrad and Shannan Eaddy are a married couple of 22 years. Welcome to the 20s, y'all. We're getting ready to head into the 30s, Dan and I. We have 29 years as of October this year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we slide into our 30s. They're pastors of One Way Ministries in Waldorf, Maryland. The Eaddys have headed marriage ministries at the Sword of the Spirit Ministries under Dr. Robert L. Bryan Jr. Of Forestville, Maryland, and at the Sanctuary at Kingdom Square under the leadership of Bishop Anthony G. Macklin, Upper Marlboro, Maryland. With over 15 years of marriage and marriage ministry, the Eaddys have counseled and ministered to countless couples with the word of God while edifying themselves in the word to strengthen their own marriage. With humility, the Eaddys passionately imparts the teachings of God, emphasizing love and transparency while shepherding hearts to bring souls to Christ and guide believers to experience abundant life. Welcome to Personality Speaking. I'm so thankful to have you both here.
Thank you,
Karen.
So let's talk about you. Let the audience know a little bit about you. You talked about you've been married for 22 years. So how did you guys meet?
In church.
We really,
we sometimes talk about it, and we're like, when we reminisce, it really was. I was at a church, and then a friend of Conrad's was at my church as well, and Conrad came to visit, and the friend had introduced him to me, and I was kind of in that place. I was young, and I was like, I'm good. My life is good. So I was like, I'm not interested in dating at all. And so I wasn't really receptive. I was like, okay, nice to meet you. Kept it moving. But he then Conrad joined the church, and we became friends. And I think through that friendship was how God kind of put us together, because I was just in this mode of like, nah, I'm not getting married.
Well, when I went to the church, it was an Easter. I forgot what year it was. It must have been like late 1990s. Mm-hmm. And my play cousin, I went with him and his girlfriend. So I was like a third wheel. So Shannan was dancing with a couple of youth. I guess you were over the youth ministry or something.
The youth dance team.
So when I saw her dancing and stuff, I felt something right then. So I was clapping for her when she was dancing, and I was saying to myself, she don't even know what she's about to get into. I was already interested. So I'll be honest. So when I met her, I kind of, because I'm not always like that, but I just felt something different because I had been around. I've been out there in the world, and I thought I was looking at a godly woman that I was like, I'm interested. Don't need me lying about it,
Nice.
So I kind of went for it, but I was respectful and I didn't like push it, Mm-hmm. But
were you saved at the time?
Yes, I was. Yeah,
you was.
Yeah,
okay.
So it got to the point where I had been out in the world, and I was like, this isn't really working. I was seeking a godly wife the whole time, but I definitely was compromising before, but I had reached the point where I didn't want to compromise. So even with Shannan, it was like, well, if that's not the one, I'll just keep it moving. But if that's the one, I think I'm ready.
Absolutely. So tell me, Shannan, once you, at some point, apparently you started to look at him differently because you weren't interested. And so what shifted for you?
I remember seeing him, and I told him this a couple times before, but we talked about it recently. I remember seeing him one day. This was after we had become friends, and we're kind of just friends and just cool with each other. And I was watching him. He was in the back of the church, like in the hallway, and there were all these kids around him, and he was playing with the kids. And I just kind of was looking, and because I forget what I was doing, but I was down the hall. And as I watched, I was like, man, in my head, well, he would make somebody a really good husband one day. He's probably going to be a good husband and a good father. And like, it just seemed like this light bulb went off in my head. Like, maybe that is what you've been looking for. Like, because I think for me, I felt like I probably wouldn't get married. A lot of what I was seeing in even Christian men was things that turned me off of getting married. Mm-hmm. And so then I'm seeing this person that is like, just, even though he had, come and wanted to go out on a date, and I was like, I'm not interested. He respected that. And he didn't like try and hound me and push me. He just respected that and was like, okay, I'm good with being your friend. And in being friends, I was close enough to him to kind of get to know him, get to learn about him, and get to know the type of person he was. And then I think that really was the moment where things shifted in my mind, watching him play with the kids and having that thought. It was just kind of like, wow, okay, I think this is what I've been looking for. I think this is the kind of guy that I've been looking for, and he's right here.
And my good looks start kicking in on. I think at first he was more, the closest she got, like, he ain't bad looking. So it started to kick in on a little bit.
It started to wear it down a little bit.
He had to wear it down,
So tell me, do you know what your personality styles are? Do you have any idea what they are?
Go ahead. You go first.
I don't know I think I'm like a combination. I think I'm more of a peaceful type. I like being around people. I like making people feel comfortable around me, but I also am kind of like a loner. when I want to be alone.
Really?
Yeah, I like being by myself because I consider myself a worshiper, and I write a lot of gospel music and just music in general. So when I'm alone, that time with God, it's cool with me. I like doing stuff like that. I'm like a creative person, so me being alone is not really like being alone. I'm occupied with creativity. Mm-hmm. So when I'm alone, I feel like I get a lot done. But then again, when I'm with people, mm-hmm. I like to. He loves. I love. I mean, I don't want to like. I just like people to feel comfortable around me. So.
And would you say that you like to, in your natural state? Would you say that you like to be around smaller groups of people or larger groups of people?
It don't.
Large.
It don't matter.
You said large?
Large.
She said large. It really don't matter.
When we talk
now, I asked the question because if you want to be around, if your personality tends to want to be around smaller groups of people, then more than likely you are a phlegmatic melancholy. Mm-hmm. Both of the introverted personality styles. But if you like to be around a lot of people, then you're probably one introverted and one extroverted, a phlegmatic sanguine. Okay. What you could be.
So when we talked about it, I told him, I said, you're an introvert, but you mask it with extroverted tendencies. And he was like, well, why would you say that? And because when I look at him, he can work the crowd. He enjoys it. He's one of those ones, the life of the party, making everybody laugh. He was the class clown. But at the heart of it, like when we are here at the house and then, you know, we love people, but sometimes, a lot of times he'll be like, oh man, I just don't, you know, I don't feel like having people over, or do this by ourselves. You know, can we just relax and then he will go and be in there for hours just playing music by himself. He'll go and work in the garage for hours by himself, do some project where he's working by himself. And so I think that he enjoys the crowd. And definitely if there's going to be a crowd, it's going to be a big crowd.
Yeah. So that's good to know because see, that's good to know because my daughter is a phlegmatic sanguine, right? Mm-hmm. When she was young, all you saw was phlegmatic. I didn't think she had a secondary until she hit puberty. Mm-hmm. Once she hit puberty, one time I heard on the phone and she was talking. I said, who is that? Like I didn't even recognize her. And she's a person, even to this day, where she needs her alone time. And she doesn't. I remember she went off to college and she had her friends didn't know where her dorm room was. Mm-hmm. And she was really mad because I had told people where her this is her commenting.
I'll strip your rights to discuss this.
That's her commenting, but I had told people where she was, and she was like, Mom, I wasn't ready for anybody to know where I was because she needed her time to be by herself, right? But when she wants to be around her friends, she's a turn-up queen. Or if she, you know, if she doesn't and has enough, she needs time to regroup. So she's one introverted and one extroverted personality styles. What about you, Shannan?
So I think that I might identify more with the melancholy one, but then with a little bit of choleric. Is that how you say it?
Choleric.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of that, because I definitely, when I get into the professional realm, I'm like straight going, you know, like it's got to be organized. It's got to be like on point. And I don't have that problem having a hard conversation. I care about feelings, but they're only to a point.
Excellent.
But then when it's like, you know, me and, you know, personally and like when around my friends and stuff, I'm very much the person that is like, I care about what everybody thinks of me. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want to get my feelings hurt. And so I thought about it. I was like, okay, well, I think I am more of an introvert.
Yeah.
I do enjoy being around people, and I do get a lot of energy. I get a lot of my energy from my interactions with people. But then there are just times where that drains me and I have to refuel. And the way I refuel is not with people, but by myself, or actually I'll get with him and just kind of like only want to be with him. Like, I don't even want the kids to come in. Like, leave us alone. Let me get time with my husband.
Well, that's really good, because I think people need to understand that, especially people who have never heard this podcast before or don't know anything about personalities, is that you can be one introverted and one extroverted personality style. You can definitely be that. But most of us have a primary and a secondary personality style. So it sounds like your primary is probably a perfect melancholy, where you need to be able to regroup when you get home. You need time to process your day and how things went for you, process your feelings, all of those things you need to do. When you're in public, because you are a secondary choleric, you can be on and you can get things done and you can make things happen. But when you come home, you have to, that energy you get while you're in that space. But when you come home, you have to regroup in the melancholy space. So
and
that's,
you said it
really
perfectly. Good. I always feel like that I have to be on when I'm out there around people. You said it perfectly. That's exactly how I feel when I'm like, I'm out there, I'm doing whatever I need to do. And I always am like, I'm on when I'm out there. But then when I come home, I don't want to be on, like I want to see myself,
So excellent. And so if you are a melancholy choleric, and Conrad is a phlegmatic sanguine, that makes you all for the personality styles. How about that?
Oh, wow.
That means you really have an ability to balance each other, right? And because the sanguine and the melancholy are polar opposites, the choleric and the phlegmatic are polar opposites. So you have all four. And so you have the ability to either drive each other crazy or the ability to balance each other.
We do both.
Sometimes you get both, right?
Yeah, we do both.
And so I want to know, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think in the beginning of our marriage, that was really what was happening. We were driving each other crazy. I think we're more balanced now as we've gotten older, but we were driving each other crazy.
Sure. And that's what happens. And this is why I do this show, because I want to breed understanding. I want people to understand that because you are different and because you see things through a different type of lens, doesn't mean you can't balance each other or work together or figure out your differences and make them work, right? That was the reason why I wrote the book, is because it's interesting. I met a lady who has been to our church to speak. She wrote some books, and I was at a retreat. I was speaking at a retreat, and she was also speaking at the same retreat. And I told her the name of my book, and she said, "Oh, I would change one word," because I said overcoming personality challenges in marriage. And she said, "No, I would change that to differences." And I said, "That's perfect," because that's exactly what it is. It is differences. Because we're different doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means we're different, and it's okay to be different, right? So I love that. So tell me, what about each other's personality drew you to each other?
I think just his humor. Like, he's a very funny person and very comfortable with people. Like, he's comfortable in his own skin a lot. And for me, coming from a place where I was more shy and unsure of myself, his confidence in just who he was, and then also his just being very comfortable to be around. Like, he likes to make, like I think you said it earlier, he likes to make people feel comfortable. He likes to not just have people around, but to make sure that they feel good and they enjoy their time with us. And so I think that I liked about him. I liked his sense of humor, and I liked that he was very much like different from other guys in the church, in that he was not putting on this whole spiritual thing to try and draw me. It was like, this is who I am and this is who you get. And I like that.
Oh, nice. And what about you, Conrad?
Oh, so Shannan, I liked her commitment to God and her worship. And then she was funny too, but she wasn't really like that, like out in public. But I saw when she's around her sisters, they get real silly and everybody don't see that. I mean, they would they would get really silly. I remember one time she got an income tax refund, and I don't know how much it was, but she acted like she fainted on the floor. She just fell out on the floor as she got the money. I mean, we would just joke around, and they would like Joan on me all the time, and it was just, I just felt at home. But then when we got together at church, we were serious about Christ, but we had a side that was like we were human too.
Yeah.
And her sisters, Crystal, God rest her soul, her sister Crystal, they would always, like, I could call over there because Shannan was living with Crystal and Mo, her other sister, of the 4 sisters, and I would call over to the house, and they'd be like, "Oh, you want to speak to Shannan?" It wasn't even nothing going on between me and Shannan. I could, Shannan, telephone for you. So it was kind of like, I guess they could see something there. I mean, I'd be over Shannon's house, and I wasn't trying to make no sexual advances in that. I just enjoyed spending time with her. We'd be reading the Bible or just talking and just having fun. So I just like being around her, and I never pressed nothing.
Yeah. Excellent. Mm-hmm. And I am sorry for your loss too, Shannan. And it's Conrad, that was your sister-in-law. So
yeah,
I'm just sorry for your loss, because I know that was devastating. She was so young.
Yeah.
To have to deal with that. So and maybe we'll do another show about that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. About that topic, because I lost my dear friend too.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Right around the same time. Actually, it was just a few months difference, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do something, to kind of help people through how they deal with grief and in their personality.
Very needed, because a lot of people now, especially moving from COVID and all of the grief that people lost, family members, loved ones, but then even coming out of that, and people started to breathe a sigh of relief, and then all of a sudden you have these different things that just pop out with people, young people.
Yeah.
And so it's very much like, even at work, I can't tell you how many employees I've had that they lose someone, and it's really affecting their lives. That's definitely a big topic.
Yeah, definitely. I actually lost a cousin a few months ago, and she was 35 years old. Just, passed out after getting out the shower and died the very next day.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that I think is definitely needed, but we'll maybe deal with that at a later date. But so those are the kind of things that I think is important for people to understand about personalities. It's the thing that really attracts us to each other. But it's in the things that attract us to each other. They're also, we talked about it early on in the marriage where you didn't really kind of get that balance, right? So talk a little bit about the things that rubbed you the wrong way.
It's funny because when he started talking about how we used to always, like, we call it joning on each other. And we would do that before we got married. Well, once we got married, some of those same exact things would irritate him. Like the joning, and he's like, "Don't you respect me?" And it's like, we did this before, and people would tell me, "No, it's different now." And I'm like, "But how is it different?" They're like, "It's different now." So some of the things that would go on, like, he was always a joker and would joke around and play around, like if something would make people laugh by him doing a cartwheel, he would do a cartwheel and just roll around on the floor.
She would too. It ain't just me. I'm not a fool,
After we got married, like before we got married, and I would laugh and stuff, but after we got married, it was like, why can't you stop being so silly, and why can't you take stuff seriously? And like some of those things started to get under my skin, and it's weird because we would like argue about stuff that before we got married, it was like we did that before, but then after we got married, we would argue about different things. It became things that we would allow to like get on our nerves. And so a lot of what we did in the beginning of marriage, it was really for us, that communication was like, it could be the best thing or the worst thing.
Right.
And we were like using our communication to tear each other down. We were using our communication to try and manipulate or control the other one. We were like threatening and
Oh,
I
wow.
don't need to be here and you can leave. And it was
my
a lot of, it was a lot of like really petty, childish stuff that we allowed to really come in between us.
Well, you know that I have the jokester of all jokesters I'm married to, right?
Yeah.
Dan and I have the same personality blocks. I'm a sanguine choleric and he's a choleric sanguine.
Oh, wow.
And we're both jokesters and we love to crack jokes. And I always say the thing that you fall in love with your mate, when you're doing well, that stuff is great. But when you're not doing well, it's the thing you hate about them the most. So it was the same thing with me as I'm a jokester, he's a jokester, but he was not funny to me when we were nothing you said, brother, is funny. So Conrad, what about you?
Well, I think it was the lack of communication and as far as like seeing it from her perspective. We didn't see things from each other's perspective. So at the beginning, it was more like, well, what about me? This is how I feel. And I never really looked at well, let me try to do a little digging and figure out why is she acting that way, or what's bothering her? Why is it bothering her that I do this or this and that? So the more we started doing that, instead of just like, I'm mad you did this, and then we didn't have any kids, so it was easy for us to just leave out the house. I go play basketball, or she'd go do something. So, but when we started like sitting down, like, all right, we gotta sit down and let me see what's on your mind. I'll see and you see what's on my mind. When we started doing that more, it became easier, and we both became like it came more conducive for us to like resolve issues because we listened to each other instead of like going off of what we thought and how we felt alone.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because melancholy personalities tend to assume things. Like sometimes what they're saying is accurate, right? And sometimes it is what we say is that they are real or imagined offenses, right? So there's some real offenses, and sometimes it's in your imagination. It's because what the mind doesn't know, it makes up. And so if you think you know, sometimes we think we know what another person's thinking. And Judge Judy said this, and I'll never forget it. She says, nobody knows the operation of another person's mind. So you can't say what another person was thinking, how they were feeling. You don't know that. Only they know that, right? And a lot of times melancholies tend to assume that they understand what another person means or what they're thinking and how they're feeling. So I can understand how there can be some miscommunication. And then if you are choleric, you can be curt and abrasive, right? If you're phlegmatic, phlegmatics tend to avoid anything that is difficult to deal with.
That's what I was going to say. So as we were talking about being on the show, I don't know. Sometimes I come up with different little creative things. So one of my communicator things was like the customer service communicator. That was me. It was like the customer's always right. I was trying to avoid any type of conflict. If you're the customer, like, oh, okay, I don't want to cause no problem. So that was me for a while.
Yeah.
Till I had to get to the point where I had
was any argument, he's like, well, I'm sorry. After we argued, he's like, I'm sorry. And he thought that would fix everything.
Right.
I'm sorry. And I was like, okay,
that's not working.
But I'm not over this. And so he was just, I guess he felt like, that I don't know if he grew up with people saying I'm sorry and it was over. But me, I was like, no, for me, it's not over. And when I wanted to continue to discuss it, he's like, you're bringing up the past. You're bringing up the past. It's over and it's done. And so it really got in between us because like, even when there were things that he wanted to hurry up and, fix it and work it out because we had an argument, he's like, let's talk it out now. And I'm like, I need a moment. I need to play. So I'm like leaving the room and then he's following me to the next room. And then leave the room and he followed to the next room. And then there would be times where he was like, well, I'm just going to go and play basketball. But then I have my love language, one of my love languages is quality time. And so for me, you're taking away what what fills me. So that's like a punishment to me.
Yeah.
And you're like, so for me, it's like he's hurtful, he's mean, he doesn't care about me. So all of those things were coming out. And again, in my mind, like you said, we can assume different things. And like in my mind, I can go down a whole rabbit hole and keep going. Like, he didn't love me from the beginning. And why did he marry me? Like it's going way over there.
Way making it.
He's just like,
all because he didn't move something out there off the floor.
I was like, let's fix it. If we got a problem, I'm more like, let's fix it. I will follow her around. I'm trying to figure out why can't we fix it right now?
Yeah, because that's a sanguine in you. The sanguine needs to have fun, and they want things to be over and done with so we can go and enjoy our lives, right? And the melancholy needs time to process their feelings and their emotions and their thoughts, and they can't always have a reaction to whatever it is you say in the moment you ask. And once people really start to understand that about each other's personality, you can calm down those fights. The other thing is, when you start looking at the issue and not each other, right? You point the finger at the issue
and
say, okay, the problem we're having right now is communication. So let's talk about how we can address the communication issue. Not you don't talk to me and you're always nasty and you that never fixes anything.
And then I started seeing that like communication isn't enough. In a sense, what I mean by like, if you go to a restaurant and you say, hey, well, my food's a little cold or whatever that, okay, or I need a fork. And they say, okay, I'll be right with you, I'll get it. And then they never come back. And you're like, what? Why isn't it, so I say, where's your communication backup plan? What I mean is you talking a lot of stuff, but can you back it up? Because a lot of people have a scripted communication where they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I love you, and this won't happen again. But then you don't see that in action. You don't see the communication translated to an operation, or it's facilitated into a means that's going to help you resolve the issue. But they talk a good game, and that's kind of hurtful when all you hear is just the talk and not back it up.
Yeah, because you have to understand communication is more than just verbal.
Well, that's true.
And so I think that also helped us a lot as we began to stop trying to plead our case, win the argument, and just began to learn each other and learn each other's, likes and differences, things like that. Like now if he were to blow up, I'm going to think about, has he been working 12-hour shifts? Has he, been up for almost 24 hours? Is, this something where he's got a lot of other things that he's, got on him at this time. And so sometimes, after he has had that moment, he's like, you know what? I'm sorry. That wasn't even, and I'm like, I knew, it's okay. I didn't even,
Yeah. On that point, I was going to say now, like with me, Shannon could go out with her friends and hang out. I'll be back. We'll be back at 11. She might come back one time. She tried to sneak in the bed like 2:30 in the morning. I saw her. Then she said, I was already. I said, no, you weren't. But like with me, and I had to. That's just her. She wasn't there
down the street at my girlfriend's house.
But like with me, I can get off of work at leave the gym at 7:45. Where are you at?
Right.
And I'm thinking, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, I ain't even say nothing when you were out all night. To me, it don't really faze me like that, but it was just kind of fun to me. But I didn't like blow up, but I think about, well, that she's just made different with that part. She wants me to
because my like things that I need as far as like what fills me up is like be here, be with me.
Right.
What he needs, like he words, tell him he's fine, tell him he looks like he enjoys that. He enjoys gift giving. He can give me a million gifts and I'm like,
But I like with her, like I knew she was with her girlfriends, whatever. So I wasn't really like tripping on it or nothing. Like I wasn't like,
but you were just wondering How come it's a different standard?
Yeah, I was like, well, dang. I mean, you like 3 hours.
Don't
past
help
the time.
him, Karen. Don't help him out.
No,
Karen.
I understand though. I understand. I understand. Listen, I do the same thing, Shannan. I'm just like you, right? I'm like, you got up at 6. Why is it 7:02?
But I think
10 minutes down the street. I'm confused.
I think one stumbling block of communication that me personally I have, and probably a lot of people have it, but they really don't want to say it, is like, I like to say it's like a diagnostic deficient communicator. And what I mean by diagnostic deficient is like, if you go to take your car in the shop, you want them to tell you what's exactly wrong. They're gonna say, all right, you need a new transmission, or else this is gonna break down. But when it's a sensitive subject, when it relates to a married couple or love and stuff, sometimes you don't really want to say what really is going on. You kind of you know what I'm saying? So you really don't want to give the true diagnosis, and that's kind of hard because you don't want to hurt anybody's feeling.
Right.
But you want to get to the point where if we're gonna save this car or this marriage, I really you need to tell me what the problem is for real. Give me the root of it, because.
But what I find though, because I do personality coaching and relationships, and what I find is that there are some personalities that struggle with being open about what they're thinking and feeling for a number of reasons, right? You have some that struggle because they just don't want the wrath, right? They don't want the conflict at all. You got some that struggle because they're like, okay, tell me the problem, let me fix it and be done with it. And sometimes you don't need anybody to fix it. You just need them to listen, right? You got other personalities that feel like, okay, I heard you. Okay, let's have fun. Let's live our life. I don't want this conflict because of that. And then you have the personality that really wants to dig into it, but can't get out of it. Right? They stay in it and they relive it, and then they bring in the past, and they're always looking in the rearview mirror. So there are reasons why each personality fails to communicate effectively, and we'll talk a little bit about that before the show ends, because I did a little slide presentation that's going to talk about some of the top issues that each of the personalities have in dealing with communication in a relationship. But let me ask you this question: what in your personalities has helped you to be better communicators and to live harmoniously in your marriage?
I think for me, I'm not gonna say I was I'm gonna say fault-free communicator. Like, it ain't never my fault. Sometimes people like it can't be me. I know it's not my fault. So
right.
And I think we both were experiencing a phase where you did this, you did that. And I'm thinking, well, what about you? Don't see the part that you would have played in this whole thing? So we had to realize it ain't just one person. It's never one-sided. But sometimes in relationships, somebody's always like I'm gonna say the MVP, the most victimized person. It's always they're always the victim, no matter what. I went out and slept with that guy because you never showed me any attention. I didn't want to do, everybody, you always the victim, no matter what. You the victim. So I think we had to grow up and like, you're not always the victim. You played a part in this too. So I think we have to realize, what role did we play in this lack of communication or this breakdown that we're having? But nobody's fault free.
Yeah, I like that. I'll put that in the comments. MVP, most victimized person. I love it because that's true. But they're also, that melancholy personality will play the victim a lot, in a scenario, because they hold on to past hurts and they find it difficult to release those, So you will find that in a melancholy spouse for sure.
So I think for me, the things that in my personality that helped me to really get through this and get better is that my personality, I'm a person that likes to take on a challenge and to overcome it. And so for me, it was like, I cannot just, have this like this. And I can't just keep, not working some type of way through this. And so for me, it's like I have that little bit of competitive spirit that is in me, and it's just part of me that I always am like, even if I'm not competing with someone else, just trying to say, well, no, but I can get better. I can do this better. And so I think that for me helped because I was more open to at some point, like, stop the madness, like we can get better. And little by little, like working with him, and like we kind of just worked it together. We did seek therapy, and therapy is wonderful.
Yes.
Because it helped us to stop seeing each other and kind of putting each other in the position of, this is who I'm fighting and this is the enemy. No, this is not the enemy and this is not who I'm fighting.
That's right.
The enemy is outside of us, and he is on my side. And so I always tell people some of the best marriage advice we ever got was from one of our former pastors, who said, y'all got to stop trying to be this perfect married couple and just get back to being friends.
Right.
And so I think we dropped all of those different pretenses that we had in our mind. Like, I had to be this in order to be the Christian wife, I had to be this way and that way. And I think, and even to the point where like, I felt like submission meant I can't say anything. And so once I kind of got to a place where I really discovered like how I can really just still be a Christian wife, but still be me, that God made me. I think the realization that God made me this way, and it worked in a certain area, like this was not by mistake, that helped me to then come into my own and to begin to really be the wife that I think he's more happy now with the wife that I am now than the wife was before, where we were arguing all the time, but I was trying to be this perfect image of, something that somebody told me.
Yeah, and I think with us, to be more transparent about, like, we're not going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We can work through it. But before, I think we had like this imposter type of personality, where we had to be, like she said, be on our P's and Q's, or like in front of everybody. I think we were trying to do it at home too.
We were both in ministry, and both, everybody would say things like, "Oh, you're such an anointed couple," and we tried to live up to that.
Right. And sometimes that gets in the way too of being who you are, right? And I like when you said that you realize how God created you. And I always tell my couples that we are wired a certain way. Our personalities are hardwired, right? We were born this way. Everybody's born with their own individual personality styles, and the same ones you were born with, you'll die with. However, Jesus was all four of the personality styles, all strengths, none of the weaknesses. And as we draw to be more like him, we will demonstrate more of our strengths and less of our weaknesses, right? So even though we still are those personality styles, we won't look like it the more we try to be like Christ in our relationships. And so in that, when you say that, you accepted the fact that this is how God created you, that's perfect. But it's also, in some couples will see it as, well, if I'm acting a certain way in my weaknesses, it's okay because that's how God created me. No, sir, no, ma'am. We are supposed to try to overcome those weaknesses and live in our strengths, right? And so I have to try to tell people, because a choleric personality I think is the most misunderstood personality style, because we are so bold and confident, and we communicate with such passion, right? That sometimes people misunderstand that for being curt and abrasive and things of that nature. When we're just really passionate about whatever we're talking about, we're also very loud. So when we talk and we get passionate, it sounds like we're yelling. And we're not always yelling. We're not always angry, even though it may come off that way.
Sometimes I still have to say, why is she yelling at me? Like, she gets real passionate a lot.
And the other thing is that if you interrupt me in a thought process, let's say I'm working on something, and sometimes somebody will interrupt me, I'll go, what? And I don't mean it to sound like, you're getting on my nerves or anything like that. I just know that for me, because I'm sanguine too, and sanguines are very forgetful, and we can be very flighty, and I can have one thought, And if you interrupt the thought, it's gone. Like you have just lost maybe 2 hours worth of work because I forgot what it was I wanted to do or say or how I wanted to come out of this thing. And so it, sometimes the person takes it differently than what you really intended to be. But that's an area that we have to work on. So let's talk a little bit about, because I know that you've been in ministry, you've counseled couples, and you've probably seen all kinds of communications faux pas, right? Things that people can do differently. So what tips would you offer the audience about how you can effectively communicate in your relationships?
Well, I know one thing I would say, I'm not going to say women in general, but it seems like they're more the ones that would focus on, if you did something wrong, I'll never let you forget it. I call it the excommunicator. So you could have a test, and the most you can get on test is 100. But if that one thing you got wrong, it's a big red X in their memory for life of what you did wrong. Yeah, you got 99, but that one thing is, I'm gonna keep on going back to that. And I think as couples, we got to stop focusing on the X's, and the percentage. Yeah. Okay, I'm doing a lot of things pretty good, but you keep on bringing up the thing I did wrong, or the couple things I did wrong, and that's really causing a problem. I mean, that's a big problem. Like, I got a passing grade. I did pretty good on the test, but you keep bringing up this X, and I think that's an issue that we have to, because nobody's perfect. Everybody got an X,
Right.
So we got to focus on the checks, the things you could check off, I should say. It's a lot of things you could check. You know how people say, what's good about this? What's good about this?
Yeah. And the X means that's not good.
They just want to focus on the X. It could be 1,000 check. He did this right. Well, she did this right. Did it line. But that X is that big red X. That's the problem. So
I like that.
One of the things that I see is that people forget that communication is not just verbal. A husband who is just agreeable to everything because he doesn't want his wife to fuss and nag. So it's like you really have to look at more than just what that person says and really consider your spouse and who they are and really learn them. Take the time to listen to them. Take the time to learn them. And don't just look at everything that is said for face value. Like sometimes I would say I'm fine, and I just was like, I don't have the energy to go into this conversation about why I'm not fine. So I'm just saying I'm fine. And, for him, he's like, I know she's not fine, but he was getting upset because the way that it would come out is, I'm fine. It comes across to him as she's angry and he's like, what did I do? Like, just
sometimes
tell me what I did. And I'm like,
later
I don't
on,
even
I
have
found
the
out
energy to tell you that it's not you. Yeah. Like, just leave me alone.
But that's still on my mouth. What did I do?
Like,
when she finally told me it's not you, we got to talk about it. I was like, because I'm thinking, what did I do?
He want to keep the peace. He want to keep the peace.
Right.
I did want to piggyback on the X thing. When I say the people that focus on the X's, for the people that listen, whatever, you can work on the X. Yeah. I mean, it might be a problem. I'm not saying disregard the X. Don't worry about it. But I'm saying that's something you can resolve too. You can work on that.
Yeah.
Just don't make that like it'll never be right because you did this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And keep reliving the same thing over and over again instead of working through it. Right. And I think that's important. I think you have to learn to work through your issues, but you have to desire to. I have some couples that I coach, and I run into this from time to time, where you have one personality that feels like they've already worked through it. Like I already had this conversation. She already knows how I feel about it, or he already knows how I feel about it, and that's it. I don't feel like I have to keep talking about it. And the other personality is feeling slighted because they feel like the issue has never been resolved, and therefore it keeps coming up. So one person's living in the past, and the other one is disregarding the person's feelings, is why the person's living in the past. So any suggestions on how you can address something like that?
I would say that like when thinking about this program, I was thinking about like when you take a can, this ain't really a can, but you know what that right there. If you got a can or something, you can read that this is a person. Now what you see on there is talking about what this person is, or he's loving, or this and that. Look through it, and it's telling you all this stuff about what's inside this person. But when you open it up, that can, you might not see what you thought was on the outside. It might be a little bit different. So I think sometimes we judge people by what's the label is, or what the script is, or what they present. People present themselves a certain way, but when you open up that can, that might be a totally different person. So
a whole different can of worms.
Yeah, a whole different can of worms. So I think that sometimes we got to go deeper and say, hey, look, I know they saying it, but we got to figure out what's the real issue. How can we resolve what's the real you? Because everybody puts that front up at first. Everybody's got like a script. Even with the thing you said about us, as far as like when you introduced us at the show. I mean, that was real nice and everything, but it's a lot of things that you can insert to like, well, this happened too, But
right,
it is what it is, But
you
have
and
to work on that.
Each person has to really work at. This is your spouse. This is the person you've chosen to spend the rest of your life with. It's like is it more important for you to be right or for you to be married and to preserve the relationship?
Yes.
And if your focus is just for you to be right, then you don't want to be married. If your focus is, this is the person I love, and I have to take, like, if it hurts him, if he feels some type of way about it, then it's got to be something that I take notice of and try and come off of my stance enough to understand what is affecting him. And I think that's part of when we get into those stubborn personalities that just want to hold on to their own way of seeing things and way of, their own perspective and not see the others, that you have to at some point let go of that and say, you know what, even if it's not a big thing, if it's important to you, I got to at least try to understand and give something in that area so that I can make sure that I'm not hurting the one that I say I love.
Right. Well, thank you for that. So I did a little presentation and I kind of want to go through, and I want to get your thoughts on it too. And this is really talking about each of the personalities and some of their weaknesses and how they're able to overcome those things, right? So let's get into it a little bit here. Let me try to make this a whole large screen thing. All right. So first of all, we have the communication weaknesses of the popular sanguine. The popular sanguines tend to be impulsive, right? In how they communicate. I always say they don't have a filter from their brains to their mouths. And so we say things without really thinking them through and recognizing the impact that it has on other people, and that we send an unintended message, right? The second thing we have is the ability to overcommit. We tend to overcommit ourselves to things, and then we don't follow through, and we can't fulfill those things. So then we basically have told a lie. We say we're going to do something we can't do. And so we end up hurting people's feelings because we can't fulfill the promises. I had an issue when I was young. I had a girlfriend who would always ask me to do things with her. And I would say, yes, sure, I'll do it. And we'll make plans to go. And my mother would say, can you take me to the store? And I just could not say no to my mother. I was a grown woman, but I could not say no to her. And my friend was like, I will never ask you again to do anything because you always commit to me and then you back out of it because your mom or somebody said something. And I had to have a conversation with her to say, Ma, I want to do anything you want, but sometimes I make plans with other people. Can we table this? Can you just give me some advance notice? So I don't make commitments that I can't keep, right? Yeah. The third thing is the difficulty in focusing. We could be all over the place with our thoughts and communication, which can confuse the person that we're talking to. So let's talk about how we can overcome those three things. One, for being impulsive, our strategy is to practice the pause. Sometimes you gotta be quiet. and you got to think through what it is you're about to say to somebody before you respond to them or before you communicate something that you don't really intend to say, right? The scripture that supports that is in Proverbs 15:28, and it says, the heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. So you got to be careful. You're not saying stuff that really is hurtful, right? So do you have any thoughts about that one before I get to the next one?
Well, I was going to say that even jokingly, sometimes sarcasm, it might be supposed to be lighthearted, but sometimes that kind of cuts when you gushing out comments. Not you in particular, I'm just saying.
Anybody.
Well, I'm saying anybody. You just got to be careful because, it can affect people.
And we tend to say some stuff out of our mouths we don't even think about, okay?
Yeah. And it's,
overcommitment. The strategy is prioritize your commitments and learn to say no. That's a spiritual discipline. Saying no is a spiritual discipline. And a lot of people don't know that. Ensuring quality over quantity. The scripture support is this Ecclesiastes 5:5. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Do you have anything to say about that, Shannan?
That definitely was something that I used to do. And I had to just like somebody that was wiser than me told me about, like, you can't be at everybody's thing. You can't, because I had a need to support everyone and to be a good friend to everyone. But in trying to be a good friend to everyone, I was a good friend to no one. I was horrible. So I had to like stop and say, no. And it would hurt me to say no because I felt like I was letting people down.
Yeah.
But then I started like that choleric kicked over that it kicked in and was like, like you cannot just like everybody, you cannot please everybody. Stop it, girl.
Well, the other thing is one of my favorite sayings that I have that came to me. I'm sure the Holy Spirit dropped it in my spirit, and that is, every good thing is not a God thing for you.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Because it's a good thing doesn't mean it's what God has intended for you. So you got to stay in your God-given lane. All right. The third thing is difficulty focusing. Man, that's a struggle. The strategy is implement mindfulness techniques to stay present in conversations, because you can say something to me and my mind will go on a whole different tangent and I've missed half of what you're talking about because I don't have entertained the whole story in my head. This scripture support is Colossians 3:2. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. My favorite, that's one of my favorite scriptures. The version I like is set your mind and keep your mind stayed on what is above and not the things that are on the earth. I love that version of it. So, Conrad, do you have any comments on that one?
Oh, yeah. I believe that. I try to stay focused. It's not easy. I'm not going to say that's an easy task, but it definitely will help you in the long run to have that mindset and stay focused.
Yeah.
Because you can see his mind, like you can see his trainer, he getting props and stuff and bringing it. He's like thinking like, oh, this is the perfect thing. I'm going to say this.
Right. You can see that engine running.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so let's talk about the powerful choleric. Their weaknesses are impatience. They have a tendency to become frustrated when they have people they deal with. They are slower communicators or have a slower process, like a melancholy and a phlegmatic. They process information slowly and methodically. Doesn't mean they're slow. That just means they're taking their time within considering all factors. They also have difficulty communicating with people who have a differing opinion than they have, which can also hinder their collaboration and communication. The second thing is they're blunt, right? They can be overly direct in how they communicate, and they can hurt people's feelings. They tend to hurt melancholy's feelings, sanguine's feelings, phlegmatic's feelings with how they communicate. The third thing is their tendency to dominate. Their desire to control will lead to taking over the conversation and stifling other people's input. So let's talk about how they can overcome some of those things. In terms of being impatient, the strategy is develop patience through the mindfulness and deliberate efforts to understand other people's perspectives. Yes, we already know that cholerics always think they're right about everything. but they're not always right about everything. And what I always say is that when you already know what you think, give a person an opportunity to tell you what they think, because you might learn something, right? So the scripture support is James 1:19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Anybody want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I struggled with and that I still sometimes struggle with. But yeah, I have tried to, because it takes over more when I'm in the business world than at home, but I try to just, bite my tongue and, give opportunity to others, because I do in my mind still think, well, I was right about it anyway. Like you went around that long explanation just to say the same thing I said. So
right.
I have to then bite my tongue and just kind of like, okay, you are not God. You're not Jesus Jr. So, yeah.
So let's talk about bluntness. The strategy is to incorporate empathy in your communication, which is hard for a choleric because we're not always thinking about that. We're fact driven, issue driven, completion driven, accomplishment driven. Yeah. And so we have to consider the impact of our words on other people, because our words have power. So the scripture support is Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.
Well, I always say speak the truth in love.
Yes, that's my favorite scripture too.
Yeah, I like that.
Tolerant.
Yeah, because some people think as long as I'm telling you the truth, I can say it like that. It's still the way you got to say it. Yeah. And me being in management, like at my job, they trained us like to, if a person's in trouble, whatever, you kind of butter them up first. Hey, so you do this so well and this and that. Sandwich. But we do have one issue that's of concern, So you just don't come on. You don't go right to the kill and jump on them, because you're attacking them
in between.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. So I'm and like even as Shannan said, like I'm always everybody. You always trying to explain stuff. It's like me. I'm always trying to. I'm saying this because I'm trying to like ease it out, because even like at my job, they're supposed to be at work and they'll call in sick. So at my job, we have to write them up, like document that they called in. So even the other day, I'm like calling people in, hey, right now, this is the season where they really want us to document. I know you may have had a situation, but I gotta write this up for it. I ain't really had to say that, but I'm always trying to smooth it over.
Right. To make them feel better. So we're out of time for you guys.
But it does.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It does work when you talk to people nice. Opposed to not treating them a different way. I mean, they'll be like, "Oh, no problem, sorry, I know it ain't you," and they'll just sign it, whatever.
Right. Yeah. So it does make a difference. Yeah. So our time is up, but I want to I'm trying to swiftly get through some of these. Okay. To give people some strategies. But so the tendency to dominate, the strategy is to encourage your spouse to share their opinions and actively seek collaborative solutions, right? The scripture is Philippians 2:3. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility, value others above yourselves. So I'm only going to read like one out of the next two so we can, move through it. The communication weaknesses for the perfect melancholy. Let's talk about perfectionism. Setting they set high expectation, extremely high expectations, not only in their communication, but in themselves and in others, right? And so that may cause dissatisfaction, and it really will stop people from being able to communicate their ideas and thoughts and feelings. So let's talk about the answer for that. The strategy is to embrace the idea that mistakes are opportunities for growth in communication. The scripture support is 2 Corinthians 12:9. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Whew. All right, let's get to the phlegmatic. Let's do one of the phlegmatics. Procrastination is their number one deal. Well, let's do avoidance and conflict, because I like that one better, because they really avoid conflict. Shying away from addressing conflicts directly can lead to unresolved issues within your communication dynamic. And there's a lot of phlegmatics who fall into that dangerous place. But the strategy is to develop conflict resolution skills and address issues directly and calmly, and directly to address the issues and not each other, right? The scripture support is Proverbs 16:7. When the Lord takes pleasure in anyone's way, he causes their enemies to make peace with them. Amen. All right, so I thank you guys for being on this show with me. Tell people how they can get in touch with you all, if they want to know more about your ministry and your counseling or anything you want them to know.
We are not the ones that have all of the websites and things like that. Just we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, but it's just mine is under Shannan Eaddy, his is under Conrad Eaddy. I think on Instagram I'm Shannan Eaddy and he's K-Rad.
Oh,
K-Rad.
6, 7.
Yeah.
I don't even know. 6, 7.
Well, I searched you under Conrad Eaddy.
It came up.
It sure did.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk to anybody. I mean, if you have a concern or something, just
reach out. Just inbox us. And we love meeting new people and helping people. And definitely there are times, even though we do like to be alone, there are times that we are definitely 100% love to be out and around people. So we will sit with couples, talk with them. We do it individually or together. Like sometimes I'll sit with the wife, he'll sit with the husband, and sometimes we'll do it all together.
Love it. Love it. All right, so I want to share this little video. So that's our show next week.
That looks good.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. Hold up. Wait a minute. I want to make sure I move this out of the way. So thank you guys for joining me on Personality Speaking, where the tea is always hot. Our show is dedicated to helping you build healthier, stronger relationships through the understanding of personalities. Please, 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 if you like this content and you want to know more about what we do, like, subscribe, comment, and check your notification bell so you can get the live notification of the show and you can join us and join in the conversation. I thank you so much, Pastors Conrad and Shannan Eaddy, for sharing your expertise with my audience. And I will see you guys next week. Take care.
All right.